have two short names, then it goes on. My name is Dora May Whiteman Onion Hugs. My maiden name is Onion, and I'm from the Crow tribe, and my Indian name is Balashtish.
One who has compassion.
Yes.
I'm Jerome Hug Sr. My Indian name is Alinech Yasash, Bright Path. I'm Crow Indian, 7/8 Crow, 1/8 Irish.
As far as the cultural teachings, stories, I've always, what I remember when I was with my mom, when I was a little girl, she always said, watch your words. You may have to live them. You may have to, it will come back on you. And I've always had that in my heart, and it helps me be the person that I am, because I need to watch what I'm saying, if I'm cruel or if I'm kind. And kindness really pays off.
I remember at a very young age, my grandfather was still there. He would tell us stories, and they would be our entertainment for the day, for the evening, like TV today, the games they have today, but back then it was stories. And I wanted so much to go back to the old ways as I grew, up. But I found that, finally found that it was impossible. And but this brought on a new learning of the outside world, the people, the white people, and acceptance of those white people in our world, and to be a person for all seasons, for all men, to be not just to the Indians, but to the white and whatever, black, yellow, brown, and that. What I've learned from these stories that my grandfather told, I thought they were just mythology, and they were unreal folk tales and that sort of thing. But as I grew up, I found out that all the different cultures of the world, different people of the world have the same stories. I mean, in their own life, in their own setting, wherever they are around the world. And I come to find out that they were real way back when, thousands of years ago, when things were totally different from today. And from that, I have come to realize the growth, the gradually growth of man, and to final redemption of mankind, when all things culminate at a point where the great Creator will make all things new again. So that's what I've learned from that.
And then when I was 10, when I first moved off the reservation, and all I initially spoke was Crow. My stepdad was Crow. He was a half-breed, but he didn't speak Crow, so there was English in our life. I spoke real broken English, and when I moved to Billings, my sister and her husband took me and raised me because of my mom's alcoholism. And I remember, I guess my English was so bad that I always think this way, that my sister's husband was non-Indian, and he decided that we couldn't speak Crow in the house. When we went to prior to the reservation, we could speak Crow with other Crows, but at home we couldn't speak Crow. And I always remember my sister was ironing, and I sat under on the floor by the ironing board, and it took me all afternoon to ask her a question in English, because it was hard for me to speak to my sister in a language that we really didn't, that wasn't our first language. And I remember I finally was able to, I can't even remember what I wanted to ask her, but that was really hard. And the other incident was my friends and my sister Deanne called me on the phone, long distance, just to visit with me, and I had to tell them I had to speak English, that I couldn't speak Crow, so they didn't call after that, because they felt that I guess I was trying to act white. But it was really hard for me to make the transition. I fought with a girl that called me a dirty squaw. I got her, and I was a rough and tough little girl, and I got her and I kind of swung her around me and let her go, and we got into trouble. And then when they found out what she said to me, then they had us take turns staying after school for the trouble that we caused. But that was, that taught me to be more resilient toward those kind of remarks. And then I was in 5th grade, and the following year I got to go to school with some Crow girls from Pryor, and we were in all 6th graders were brought into the Lincoln Center, and that's where our 6th grade classes were. And I was really happy to have Indian friends, and I'd have lunch with them, and we got together whenever, and pretty soon they kind of start not coming to school, and the white girls and that said, "Oh, we're so glad those dirty, stinking Indians aren't coming anymore," and stuff like that right in front of me, and it hurt me. But from that, I learned that I was as good as they were, and that I was going to prove to them that I was as good and as smart as they were. So I start working real hard on my schoolwork and that, and my grades came up, and I think that's what brought me over that shyness and that I tended to have. So that was my first experience with living off the reservation. And later on, I used to be kind of, when we went in stores and that, I was right there trying to pick an argument or something with anyone that even tried to put us down or anything. And I had to learn to temper myself, to soften myself, and those are my experiences of coming to live off the reservation.
Oh yeah, that reminded me back when we were a child on the reservation back in the 50s. no one spoke any English at all until you got to the first grade. And speaking English was something comical, something funny, something we didn't dare speak to one another. If we did, they laugh at us, We laugh at each other. Hey, look, he's trying to be like a white man, and we all laugh. I remember in fourth grade when she came to St. Charles in Pryor, and I was in fourth grade too, and the fourth graders there, we could barely put together a sentence or half a sentence, but she was light years ahead of us, she could really talk English. Boy, this girl here is some kind of intelligent person, Where we tried to speak English and we couldn't make heads or tails, of anything. But then we went after that to grade school and then to high school in Edgar. It's 18 miles away outside of the reservation into a high school. It was about half and half. It was Class C, it wasn't that big. Sometimes I think we reached 130 people or around there. We're down to 75 people, students. But it was about half and half, and we had to speak English. It was such a culture shock. Us freshmen, we weren't too bright to begin with, that freshman group. Even the white kids weren't too bright that time. Even from Pryor, there was two white kids from Pryor, and all of that class, the white kids from Edgar, the freshman class, the dumbest one was a white kid from Pryor, Instead of English 1, we were English 1B. We couldn't sing, the teacher would be right in front of us and ask us to tell us, the background of a subject, and then she'd begin to ask one of us, and none of us would remember anything, nothing at all. To make matters worse, she was cross-eyed. The woman was the teacher was cross-eyed, and you couldn't tell she was looking at you or looking to the next person on the side of you. And when she asked us, we tried to answer and said, "No, I'm not talking to you, I'm talking to him." And that made us even dumber, things were, but as time went by, 3 weeks, and that, they started pulling us out of there, some of us, into English 1. But then, the Indian group, we brought in the federal programs, and there was a lot of good athletes. And if you're a good athlete, or just being Indian in Edgar at the time, if there was prejudice, you never saw it. We were lifted up high, especially if you were an athlete. Everybody stepped out of the way and done things for you and all that. And so I never really felt any prejudice or anything like that at all through high school. In fact, we were the heroes, and that sort of thing. But it was after that, in '71, when her and I came to Billings, moved to Billings, and I got into welding, and we bought an interest in a Gulf gas station. We had the two things going, but the thing of it was that we were both drinking. We both drank, and everything I did up to that point, I felt in drinking, like arrow throwing in the cultural bag through high school age. We won the championships and that, but then the next day, still another day of arrow throwing. By that time, we'd be drunk, drunk and trying to throw arrows, or into high school district basketball tournament. I was drunk. We were drunk. Away games from Edgar, away games. We'd be drinking on the way, and it was drinking. Messed up a lot of things, in my life. So when we got together and got the partnership in the Gulf gas station and going to school, But up to that time, but first I wanted to be a coach and a Montana history teacher. But then I realized I coached. I was a teacher assistant coach for 3 years, and I found out that wasn't for me. I couldn't handle little kids. I didn't have the patience for it. But I kept telling her, I said, you'll make a good teacher. So I founded her. I was she finally did, become a teacher, and she was a good teacher, excellent teacher, and she got recognition throughout the Northwest United States and all. But our drinking, we were both fought each other, and messed up our relationship. Only by God's grace we stayed together, and we come this far, and we brought 4 beautiful children, of Josiah's the youngest one, and they're good kids. They're good kids, and they had trouble drinking and all that, but they come out of that, but only, like I say, only the grace of God has come this far and sitting right here and talking with you guys.
I waited till I was in my 40s to go back. I had some college courses, but I waited till the opportunity came up when I was in my 40s to go back and get my teaching degree. And I came and back then it was, the doors were kind of open for the Indian students, and at the beginning of the term there'd be a whole bunch, and there'd be young people there, and some older ones, and these older ones would kind of say, "Don't give up, keep coming, and keep working at." And whenever I talk to the younger students, I'd say that don't give up, keep going, keep working at it. You'll make it. But I was able to kind of substitute and still work, and I was able to do it in 3.5 years. I remember my boss said, "Oh, you can do it in just 3 years. I know you can." And he really encouraged me to go back after my teaching degree and that. And he said, "Whenever you're done, we'll have a job for you right here. Don't worry about it. Just keep going." And then I came into a grant where that was something too, because it was made for when you got into your major field of study. It was made for those students and those that were going after their master's degree. And I was only in my freshman year still, but they opened the door for me, and they accepted me, even though I wasn't, that grant wasn't made for a freshman or a sophomore, but they opened the doors for me, and I was able to get in. And because of my earlier experience of dealing with the prejudice and stuff that does come up, and that you have to be tough and be not let the white people put you down, but stand up to them. And that has helped me through my life. And later on, when I got into my master's program and that, I worked real hard, and there was a time when I wanted to give up because it didn't make any sense to me. I had to write my research paper, and the main professor said, you gotta redo this. Look at it and you gotta redo it. And I wanted to give up. And I thought, to heck with it. I don't have to do this. I'm working, I have a job and all that. But then personally, it came down to, okay, that's what you done in high school. You didn't do your research paper, and that's why you dropped out of, didn't graduate, but had to go back and get your GED. Are you gonna do the same thing to yourself again? And then I thought, okay, and I had him read my paper, and I had other my peers read some, and some of the people I work with, and they all looked at it, and they didn't say too much about it. They had the grammar on it. They'd done corrections, and then I had him read it, and he says, it all flows good except this one paragraph. I think you have to move that over to this part. And I looked at it and I said, well, that must be it. And I done that, and I put it back in, and here that was the only thing that I had to do, was I had to move that one paragraph. And the professor didn't say it. I guess he wanted me to see it myself. But I got through it, and that professor and several others nominated me for the non-traditional student of the Northwest region of the United States, and they awarded me that, and Jerome and I got to go to Seattle and receive that award here a couple years ago.
Oh, yeah. Back when I was young, as a child, I knew something. I mean, words. I had real interest in words. Sometimes I'd sit by my grandmother after my grandfather passed away and ask her words. Why is this word? What does it mean? I said, why is it like that? And how come? Who came up with the word? And I had all kinds of questions. Till she answered me out to the point and said, "It's like I don't know where I exhausted her knowledge." Anyway, but I knew I had to do something with words in my life. In high school, I bought a record and some books, $21. That was a lot of money back then. That contained, words, nothing but words, the meaning of words, and all that. I remember a bunch of them. One stands out. It says, acumen. A man with acumen is not easily imposed upon. And so, I searched words, and then finally in '74, missionaries came to Pryor, wanted to translate the Word of God into our language, the New Testament. And they came to me, and I said, can you help us, help us out in this? I said, yeah, sure will. Boy, I thought maybe I'll have a sentence or a word here and there, and when finally it's done, I'll have contributed some to it. So I was anxious. Anyway, and we got going on it, and then that lasted 12 years to the exact day. Exactly 12 years later, on that day, I resigned. I come to find out later that it was on that exact day, December 16th, 74 to 86. And but during this time, we were in such a hurry. I was 24 years old at the time, and first 2 years we come out with some translation. What we translated, we put it into recording, and I realized now, years afterwards, that I should have waited towards the end, because we improved so much at the end, where we the missionaries and myself and all the other helps and that. We improved so much, and we did another recording about 2/3 of the way, and that was so much better than this first one we had done. But the circulation of that first one was all over the reservation, and some people like it, some people didn't like it that much. But became real good at the end. And but then situations, unforeseen circumstances come up and disrupt the work, and it destroyed our relationship, where the work had to stop and had to be picked up by someone else. And it was 12 years, but in about the third or fourth year I was in it, I came into the office one day, and 12, I saw 12 in the vision, like in neon lights like these here. 12, and I wondered what the 12 means. 12 years, 12 what? But then that's when I quit. When I resigned, it was exactly 12 years later. That's what God had me on there to work on there for exactly 12 years. And but then we got into the radio for 2 years, expounding on the Word of God in Crow. Then 2 more years going house to house. And from that house to house, some people mentioned later afterwards that a lot of old Crow people have gone on to heaven through the Word of God in Crow, and that was an encouraging word, after I heard that, because it didn't seem like it had that much effect, or Indians just sit there with a stoic look on their face, and they just look at us, with no expression or nothing. Yeah, from here, cross country east to Long Island and all points in between. Spoke in churches. At one point, her and Deandra was a year and a half, 7 months.
Year and a half.
Met us in Syracuse, New York. And everybody knew she was coming. It was at a missionary conference, a huge church in Syracuse. And missionaries came from all over the world and jam-packed, and they knew she was coming. Dora's coming, and everybody was anxious, to wait. Who's Dora? We wanted to see Dora. And finally, she came in that night. She walked up the stairs, and everybody stood and clapped their hands, and she almost fell backwards. But anyway, from straight up here into just below the Northwest Territories, Beaver Indians, a throwback. They have no village of 65 people, all alcoholics, no stores, no post office, no phones, no lights, nothing. Even the river that ran by them was filled with minerals, and the thing was maroon, dark maroon. The river was dark maroon, no fish, no living thing in it. They go hunting. We went to those people and helped those people, and they were about our speed. Had a cowboy hat and overall jacket and Levi's or Wranglers, and Larry and I dressed that way, and those guys were all dressed like that too. So we were just like one of them, They're building the reservation building. They're building. It's smaller than this room. There's a smaller conference room there, and boy, they sure jam out there, guitar with only 4 strings, and we were just like them. Went hunting with them, and we laughed and joked, and anyway, like that. Then south, almost to Arizona, New Mexico, and at one point almost to Old Mexico, but that didn't pan out, or South America. and into Alaska. They both were in the works, but they didn't pan out. One little interesting story about this whole thing was for 3 years' time. You weren't born yet. Only Josh and D'Angelo were little kids, and for 3 years we'd go to Estes Park in Denver, and for a missionary conference, NAB, North American Branch. And before going there, the missionary asked me, "Would you present? They want you to talk. Can you make a presentation or a speech of some kind?" All right. So I thought I had enough time to pick a topic and speak there. Then I'd go through the Bible and pick a topic and study and that, and I didn't feel I couldn't feel it. I couldn't really get into it. So I picked another topic and I picked another topic until right to the day, going that same day that I was supposed to speak, I still had nothing to say. I couldn't find anything. Worth. I really tried to get on a subject, but man, somehow I couldn't get into it. And there I was, sitting up on the platform with those guys, and there's jam-packed auditorium, and different ones got them, and they sure, spoke eloquently. These missionaries are intelligent people, They're very intelligent. They could be executives in some big corporation or something, but they give all that up to present the Word of God to a people that otherwise wouldn't know the Word of God. They give their lives to that, and different ones got up and spoke, and they brought in speakers from all over the country. And the one just in front of me was a radio personality. Boy, he got up and done a banged up job, because he was a speaker. And they clapped and everything, and there I was sitting there with nothing to say. Man, the door was open over here, and I wanted to run out there. I felt like crying. Man, what am I going to do? And so he got off, and then they called me up. I got up. I thought about the door. I got up and I walked towards the podium. As I walked, then the thoughts come to me. The Word of God is the key. A key has been given to only a select few out of the millions and billions of people in this world. Only a few missionaries here. There's a lot here, but compared to the general mass, there's just a few of them here, and you have been given this. And I started talking that way. And boy, I could see people crying, just from that, people crying, and they were about ready to give up and all. And it was so hard in some places that they were just about ready to give up, and that from that little speech, they got charged up, and from that they took my tape, and they're going to send it to Texas, Dallas, Texas, just on the other side, SIL, Summer Institute of Linguistics, SIL, to where the young missionary couple come to join the missionary field, and they start their training there, and the very first thing they have them listen to is my tape. If I had run off, things like that wouldn't have happened, Boy, and then there's a whole line of people wanting to speak to me, all the way across to the back, and that radio personality was right in the center of wanting to speak to me,
The biggest thing is for you to accept yourself and know that you're as good as anybody else out there, and that if you if you live that and if you believe that of yourself, you can impart that to your children, and they in turn will be able to stand and be able to be proud of themselves. And I like that the Indians that do live here in Billings come together and they pull together, and I see that, and I think that's really wise of you to do that, to pull together and to stand up together, because we own this land. This was our land, all of this, and the white people came in and took it from us. And I'm not trying to say woe is me and that, because that was way back, and we need to live in the world that we have now, and that's being proud of ourselves, standing up for ourselves, and that not in a belligerent way, but in a peaceful way we can stand and be assertive.
Oh, yeah, well, I guess, I was just telling you, Williams, last night that a lot of people are moving out of Pryor. Just a few of us here, and they're either moved to Billings or to Hardin or to the other side of the reservation. And that's because of no jobs in Pryor. And they have to come out, to the larger section where there's more jobs. They have to seek for themselves to make a living. So they just need to blend into the culture there here in Billings, be friends with their neighbors, become part of their community, be a productive part of that community, and be just like the others, raise their kids. I see that all these Indian schools here have Indian clubs with them, and have their kids join them. Not forget their Indian culture, but to live in harmony with where they're living, with the people, with them, be a part of them as much as possible.
That I'd like to say is trust in the Lord. He who made everything, because that's where we're able to get our strength. That's where we get our wisdom. That's where we get everything from. And we need to put our trust in the Lord.